You're gonna put it on the YouTube?
Put it on the YouTube and massage the salt into the cabbage.
Gotta massage the salt into the cabbage.
I put a cup of salt into 5 pounds of cabbage. So see how much the cabbage shrunk down? I got it into one bowl. And now I'm gonna fill it with filtered water and weigh it down for 1 to 2 hours. You can just put a plate on top and like a heavy can of beans or something. So this is how I weighed it down. You just wanna make sure it's under the water. And I'm gonna leave it in the salt brine for 1 to 2 hours. I'm gonna make the paste while the cabbage is sitting in the salt brine. So I doubled this recipe. It's 5 pounds of Napa cabbage. It normally calls for 2.5 to 3 pounds. So just so you're aware, I doubled this recipe. So for the paste, you do 10 garlic cloves. And it calls for a teaspoon of ginger, but I like a lot of ginger. And if you get organic, keep the skin on because that's where all the nutrients are. I put all of this in a food processor because it's so much easier than hand grinding the ginger and the garlic. It also calls for, if you double it, 5 to 10 tablespoons of Korean chili pepper flakes, which I get on Amazon, super easy to find. I like it pretty spicy, so I do the max. And of course, I was at the bottom of my bag, so I only have 5 tablespoons. So you add that to the food processor, 2 teaspoons of organic sugar. I don't like a lot of fish sauce, just because I'm not a fan of the fish sauce. It's stinky and it's fishy, so I put the bare minimum. It does call for 4 tablespoons and I'm only putting in 2. So that's how you make your paste. I'm going to food process it until it's a nice paste. If it's too dry, you can add filtered water to it to make a nice consistency because you're going to eventually add it to that Napa cabbage. Super easy, guys. So I wanted to show you what the paste looks like. I started to blend it and it was kind of sticky. So I added about 4 tablespoons of filtered water and that thins it out nicely. Because you're gonna add it to that cabbage, there's gonna be water in there, so don't worry too much about consistency. But just so that things are mixed well. And I'll show you the finished product. And I wear gloves because this stuff, once you get on your hands, it's like handling hot peppers. So obviously they're red pepper flakes. So I'm gonna show you what this stuff looks like. So it's a nice consistent paste. The garlic and the ginger are all kind of like cut up finely, chopped finely in there with red peppers and the fish sauce. And I usually skip fish sauce, so if you like totally hate it, don't even put it in there. Don't worry about it. So this is the paste. And when that cabbage is ready in 1 to 2 hours, we're gonna add it to the cabbage. Okay, your next step is to add green onion. It calls for half a bunch, but like I said, I'm doubling it, so I'm doing a whole bunch. And we're just gonna chop them. And of course, it also calls for a large daikon radish. And unfortunately, my grocery store didn't have that, so I improvised with just regular radishes, and I got 2 bunches. Again, I'm doubling it. So we're gonna cut these into matchstick pieces, chop the onions, and we'll just throw them in a bowl. You can see my cabbage is still under the saltwater brine, and it's been almost an hour, so it's about ready. And we have our red chili paste to add to it. So we're almost to our next step to combine. I just wanna show you guys how I cut up my green onion. Nothing to it. I just wanna show you guys how I'm cutting the radishes into matchsticks. Really not much to it, and it doesn't have to be pretty. These are my cutting gloves. They work really well because I'm kind of a klutz and tend to cut the tips of my fingers off, so these work really well. Got them on, my husband got them for me on Amazon, so if you guys are interested, let me know. Okay guys, so we're on the final steps. So after you let your cabbage soak in that water brine for 1 to 2 hours, you want to triple rinse it with filtered water. And then I let it sit in a colander for 15 minutes. And now we have the final steps. We're gonna put it in this jar. So I have a half-gallon jar because I doubled that recipe, a weight, which you don't have to have, but I just like to use them. And then I use plastic lids so there's no risk of getting rust in your brine. So you're gonna add your kimchi paste to the bowl, and then your leftover brine from straining it to the paste. It's gonna be good. And I use gloves because that stuff is hot and spicy. I'm gonna add this to the paste. Mix in our green onion and your daikon or regular radish matchsticks. It gets well coated. With that water, it mixes really well, and then you'll add your cabbage and mix well so everything's coated. All right, I got it all mixed up. It looks delightful. So now we're gonna put it in our jar and make sure in between you kind of push it down so it's packed in tightly. And you're gonna fill it till about 1 inch of headspace is allowed. And you wanna make sure that everything is submerged under the liquid from the brine. If it's not, you can add some filtered water. So I'll show you the final, how it looks at the end. All right, so this is the finished product. And make sure all your veggies are under liquid. And I always label them and put the date on. And every day you're gonna wanna loosen these to let out the gases that are produced from the ferment. But in about 5 days you'll have kimchi, and you can taste it. If it's not tangy enough, you can let it ferment on the counter for longer than that. I've gone up to a month, but just keep watching it. It's gonna bubble and it's gonna be super tasty. I'm so excited for you guys.